Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is Tour of Lombardy 2024. It's the big showdown for Tadej Pogačar to try to book in the 24 season. He started off winning Strade Bianche, but can he finish the 24 season winning here at Tour of Lombardy? Well, when you went to bed last night, you thought for sure he could, but you still got to deliver, and it's a 255-kilometer race, about 160 miles with 8 category climbs. The big news before the race started, Primož Roglič, he called it a season a few days before, announcing he won't show up here at Tour of Lombardy. Instead, he needs some rest time. Obviously, he's had a hard 24 season, but he still won the Volta a España, and he still won Dauphiné. Now, the next big news, Tom Pidcock. What's the drama attached to Tom Pidcock, who just went second at Giro Emilia to Tadej Pogačar? What's the drama that's keeping Tom Pidcock off the roster? If you look at his social web, well, he says that he had the form to start here at Tour of Lombardy, but it's a management decision. So Ineos must have some drama attached to it. And of course, there's been a lot of news that Tom Pidcock would be leaving Ineos, but he's under contract for multiple years still. So can't wait to hear what that's all about. As we get to kilometer zero, well, the racing starts. And if I back you up just one more time, it's Remco Evenepoel. That's the hot hand favorite to give Tadej Pogačar a problem here at Tour of Lombardy. Well, kilometer zero hits. We see that is Uno X throwing in attacks left and right. And then we start fast forwarding you all the way up to a break of 23. In this break of 23 riders and multiple teams up there with multiple numbers, you know they're putting pressure on Tadej Pogačar and all the directors sportifs. Before the race started, said we got to do something so the Slovenian and UAE team members do not win another race here in 2024. That's why you see this group of 23 working fairly well together. Bahrain Victorious have 3 riders up there. Mate Mohoric is up there. Antonio Tibieri up there, who went 5th at the Giro. And then we see Caruso, who's went 2nd at the Giro d'Italia a few years back. So Bahrain Victorious are covered with good numbers up there. We see Visma Lease Bikes, Wilco Kelderman's riding the front up here often, and Thies Benoot's in this group. Ineos did make the group. As we see, it's Arensman up in this group, and he's got company with Brandon Rivera. As this group has got, call it 8 different teams here with multiple riders in the 23-rider group, we'll see that Bahrain Victoria starts slipping off the back on the 4th climb here, as we see Tibieri doesn't have the legs that he had at the Giro. Once they get over this 4th category climb with 135 kilometers to go, we go back and look at the peloton. What was happening up over these climbs? Well, they had Jan Christian and Finn Fisher-Black doing a fantastical masterpiece job back there tactically of keeping the group of 23, that's now 22, at about a 2-minute gap. Now, why is that important? Well, from 135 kilometers all the way into about 102 kilometers to go, this is where that group of 22 riders can make up massive time on only 2 riders back there pulling. If you're UAE team members, you're telling Finn Fisher-Black and Jan Christian that you got to go full gas through this last 30 kilometers and get us into the tunnel with about 5 kilometers to go before the next climb starts. Why is that important? Because you know their legs are going to blow up, which means it's time after that for Rafał Majka, it's time for Mark Hirschi, it's time for Adam Yates, it's time for Sivakov to go to work for Tadej Pogačar, but you don't want those guys pulling on the flats. The problem is with 22 riders pulling on the flats and speeds at 45, 55, and 60 kilometers an hour, that's hard for 2 riders to hold 22 if they're working well together. The only problem is for that group of 22, Brandon Rivera slipped off the front with about 130 kilometers to go and wasted about 5 to 8 kilometers of time that they could have been gaining on UAE team members. As he slipped off the front in the tuck there, he looks back over his shoulder, and does he wait? He doesn't wait. He keeps going. This is a knucklehead move because they got our Arensman in that group back there, and he needs maximum time on UAE team members before the next climb starts. And it's only these 35 kilometers that you can gain massive time on 2 riders behind chasing. So once they bring back Brandon Rivera, does he go straight to the front? No, because he's already been off the front, so he goes to the back of the group, and we see our Arensman on the front of this group of 22 riders. That's the wrong way to do it, but they're doing it anyways and not listening to me. Christian back there, along with Finn Fisher-Black, are doing a fantastic job, but they're losing time to the group of 22 up front as their speed's at about 45 kilometers an hour. But with 22 guys rotating through at speeds, they're all feeling fresher each time they come to the front. But Finn Fisher-Black and Jan Christian with his head tucked down are throwing everything into the pedals. We come into the tunnel there and we see the front group come through the tunnels. They'll make it out of the tunnel alive. When I was living here in Como, I didn't make it out of the tunnel exactly in one piece and spent a week in the emergency room. So make sure sure if you're ever here training, bring your lights because you're going to get stuck through a tunnel like I did, and possibly you don't want to get hit like I did either. So as we see this breakaway guys make it through the tunnel, the real racing starting here with about 100 kilometers to go at Tour of Lombardy. The peloton's coming through the tunnel too, and we see Pozzovivo gets a list of stats there that says, hey, this is his last race and he's retiring at the end of 2024 season. Congratulations, Pozzovivo up there. There'll be another list later that Jan Christian's involved in. He's the youngest rider in the race at 20 years of age. Well, he's compared to Pozzovivo, who started his racing career when Jan Christian was born. Now we get back into the racing. The peloton's come out of the tunnel with about 102 kilometers to go. This is when it gets nervous for Tadej Pogačar. Throughout the whole first 160 kilometers of this racing, Tadej Pogačar has been in a good place and always safe at front with UAE Team Emirates riders in front of him, but now it's curb to curb. The peloton is chasing the breakaway riders up front that are holding about a 4-minute and 20-second gap on them, but you see it's FDJ on the front, you see it's Soudal Quickstep on the front, and if you're listening to your commentators and they're like, why are these guys chasing when they got guys in the break? They're not chasing. At this moment, the road's so narrow, so they're twisting along Lake Como right now. You have to stay at the front to start the Onigo climb right now that's coming up in just a few kilometers. That's why the peloton's stress. I've been in this stress ball many times and I've crashed coming along this lake. There's no room with the mountainside up there on the left and, of course, the guardrail there so you don't go off into the coast right there to the right, so you're left with no space. But that stress is bringing back time on the group up front of 22 riders. It's time for Rafał Majka to go to work. But before he starts getting on the front proper, we see Jan Christian come back up to the front. He looks right over his shoulder there at Rafał Majka. He says, I got a little bit more left. I'm putting that in. But what else could he be saying? As we see Jan get back on the front, he'll deliver a few hundred more meters, and then it's time for Rafał Majka to go to work. Rafał Majka will do this next climb all the way up for the next 5-6 kilometers. As we get to the top, it's about 5 kilometers falls flat at the top, and then we start the famous Gazalo as Rafał Majka is taking off a minute of the group in front. Now the group lost some riders going up this climb. Tibieri has been dropped earlier on the 4th category climb here, so Byron Victorious is getting down in numbers. Once we start the Gazalo proper, they're going to lose another rider as we see Caruso's coming about out the back. That's only leaving Mate Mohoric up here, who's been riding the front throughout Tour of Lombardy, but the numbers are starting to get reduced. We go back and look at Rafał Majka. He's driving it on the front. You know the MO right now for UAE Team Emirates is to make it as hard as possible so Tadej Pogačar can launch on the Shimano. As we start getting up to the top of the Gazala, we see the group of about 18 riders going over the top together and dropping down the technical first part of this descent of the Gazalo. Then we start looking back at the peloton back there. It's Mark Hirschi, the Swiss rider, who's been winning race after race, weekend after weekend here at the late part of the season of 24. He'll drop off Rafał Majka, who'll drop to the back of the group as we see Mark Hirschi going over the top of the Gazalo in the front leading Adam Yates, Sivakov, and Tadej Pogačar on the front of the peloton. Now with Mark Hirschi going full gas, if I bring you back to that 1K, this was probably the only tactical mistake I've seen from UAE Team Emirates. I would have waited for Rafał Majka, who I found coming down the back side of the GC group here, just about 11th position from the back, so he's still in this group, but we'll see the peloton split in half as the flatter section here of the Gazalo starts, and then we go down the last part with Mark Hirschi on the front. Mark Hirschi's got to do monster pulls right now because he's still got 10-15 kilometers of flat roads that'll bring you along there to the Bellagio before he's done with his work too. As Mark Hirschi's doing full gas, we go up to the front. We start seeing FDJ throwing in some attacks with Rudy Millard. What are you doing, Rudy Millard, right now? You got to get into the Shimano with as much time as you possibly can, and everyone has to be working together. If they're not working together, they're going slow with Rudy Millard throwing in attacks. That means they're losing time because Mark Hirschi's throwing everything into the pedals. Once we start the Shimano proper with about 55 kilometers to go, the group of, we'll call it 17, 18 riders starts, but then they start blowing up with attacks of FDJ and Eddie Dunbar bridging up to those two guys. They'll get pulled back, and then the peloton hits the hard left U-turn there. As we see Mark Hirschi's done going to work, it's the next rider up for UAE Team Emirates. That's Adam Yates. Once Adam Yates starts pulling, the time gap slowly starts coming down as he starts taking 10, 20 seconds, 30 seconds off of the gap of the group in front, and it's blowing up to pieces. Zandro Mayus threw an attack, and he's got 4 riders chasing behind him with Arensman, one of them, for Team Ineos. Now we go further down. Adam Yates does about 2 quality kilometers of pulling on the front, but not a lot of quality, as once we see Sivakov take over from him, it starts blowing the GC group up. He's got it down to about 25 riders, and he's catching all the original breakaway riders. As he's coming into about 6 kilometers, 6.5 kilometers to go up to Shimano, he's coming back up to Zandro Mayusin, our Ensman, the last of the breakaway riders. Once he starts catching them, bam! Tadej Pogačar goes to work with 6.5K to go on the Shimano. He splits the difference between Zandro Mayusin on the left and the right side of Sivakov as he throws in a huge acceleration. Nobody can follow the Slovenian. The cameras find Remco Evenepoel, who went around the right side, but he's not accelerating on the pedals. He's seen enough riders make that mistake. He's staying steady here on the Shimano, but he's got company with Enric Mas. Mas is trying to help out, but it looks like his legs are blown. Then we see Leonard van Etveld from Lotto Destiny coming across the gap. Before he makes it, we fast forward up to Tadej Pogačar, who's coming up to the feed zone, and he sees his soignier. As he's pointing to his soignier, he's saying, nah, I don't need that bottle. I probably got some more feed bottles at the top, and I'm going fast right now. I'm feeling good. So he skips the bottle, keeps going hard on the pedals, and Leonard van Etveld's bridging up to the 2 riders behind of Mas and Remco Evenepoel. As we got 3 riders chasing one Tadej Pogačar. Tadej Pogačar's got 30 seconds right away, then 40 seconds on the 3 chasers. Only problem is Remco Evenepoel's looking back, swinging his hand through like this as he wants some help up here, but he's getting nothing. Leonard van Etveld will finally come up and do a little bit of pulling, and then we'll see everyone looking at each other. Are they worried about the riders behind them? I don't think they need to, because when we go down the camera after we saw Remco Evenepoel looking back and Leonard van Etveld looking back, well, we see the next group, they're all looking back at each other too. Sivakov's getting wrapped up shortly after that as he's in a group of about 6 riders with Ciccone. Then we go fast forward up front to Tadej Pogačar, super fast, because this guy is blazing the trail here up to Shimano as UAE team member. It's going over the top solo. We go further down. Remco Evenepoel's coming over the summit here with 2 riders on his wheel that won't take a pull with Enric Mas and Leonard van Etveld. As they come over the top, Enric Mas makes a huge knucklehead move, opens up a gap on Remco Evenepoel, who's bombing down the descent and doesn't wait for his 2 companions behind. Now we got 1 rider chasing 1 rider and 2 riders chasing those guys. Then when we look further back as we're going over the summit, just before it anyways, Sivakov threw an attack. He's going solo over the summit trying to catch the 2 riders in front of him. And then we see there's a group behind him that's coming over with Ciccone. Up front, Tadej Pogačar's bombing down the descent. Remco Evenepoel's doing the same thing. Maybe if I'm stretching the truth a little bit, he might have brought back 5-10 seconds on Tadej Pogačar coming down the descent. But once we get to the flat section, Tadej Pogačar goes to work on the pedals as he starts extending the gap slowly. 5, 10, 15 more seconds on Remco Evenepoel. He's up to about 1:15 now on the Belgian rider behind, who's got time back there on Enric Mas and Leonard van Etveld. But Sivakov is starting to bridge up, and we're coming into about 20 kilometers ago when Sivakov's got a lady walking across the street in front of him. His head's down because he's throwing everything in the pedals trying to get a podium here at Lombardy. As the lady's walking from the left side to the right side, Sivakov's drifting from the left to the right with his head down, and you start to worry if he's going to crash into her. She makes it over to the right side of the street. He just misses her and then keeps going on the pedals because he's bridging the gap with about 18 kilometers to go to the 2 riders in front to make 3. Only problem is when he gets there, they're still looking around, and Tadej Pogačar is not looking around because he's got 10 kilometers to go with about a 2 minute and a half second on Remco Evenepoel, who's coming into Como proper too. As we go further back, we see the group got larger back there as Ciccone and Bach Mollema group has come together. We go up front now, under 8 kilometers to go. Tadej Pogačar starting the last and final climb of the 24th season for the Slovenian race season anyways. Once he starts to climb, he starts seeing all the fans. We see the sign out there saying, Tadej, give me a high five. He doesn't have time for that. Does really, but probably doesn't want to catch some COVID. So he keeps flying on the pedals up the climb, extending his gap to Remco Evenepoel, who started the last climb solo too. We go further down. Sivakov is throwing in an attack right now at this moment on Leonard van Etveld and Enric Mas, who are struggling to try to pull him back. Once we go further behind them, we'll see the attack from Bach Mollema just before the climb starts proper, but he gets brought back. Fast forward up to the 3 riders in front. Leonard van Etveld and Enric Mas have pulled back Sivakov. As Sivakov's pulled back, Tadej Pogačar is going over the summit with 4 kilometers to go. The Slovenian's dropping down the summit, full gas through all the corners. gets a little bit sketchy coming in with 3 kilometers to go. There's a crack there just on the left side of his wheel, and it's a right followed by another right. So the Slovenian's got to be a little careful. Comes all the way out on the left side of the fencing, looks over at the camera and gives a smile, and then he's back on the pedals. We go back up the climb. We see Remco Evenepoel's summit solo 2. We go further back. Ciccone has caught the group of 3 up there. Now he's throwing in an attack with about 500-600 meters to go at the summit. He'll solo over the top of the summit with some guys hot on his heel, but he's got a gap on him. As we see Moss's legs are starting to tire. We see back there Leonard van Eltvert and Sivakov are hurting. And once we go back up to Tadej Pogačar with a kilometer to go, we know the Slovenian's going to win Tour of Lombardy. As he rounds the last right turn, he sits up, celebrates with the arms in the air, crosses the line, and it's time for hugs and handshakes from the staff. We go further back down the course. We see Remco Evenepoel rounding the bend. He'll give a little wave to the fan, cross the line for second place. Congratulations, Remco Evenepoel. That was a nice ride. Tactically perfect here at Tour of Lombardy. We go back as we're coming out of the last turns. We see that, of course, it's Ciccone holding off the group behind. The Italian rider for Lidl Trek will cross the line for a podium place here at Tour of Lombardy. Behind him, the group, it's Izagirre back there from Cofidis that'll round out the 4th place here for top 5. And when I take you back to the next group, it's Sandro Mayus who'll get a top 10 here at Tour of Lombardy. Congratulations. Why did I bring his name up? Well, he was one of the 23 riders in the original break, so that was a magnificent ride here from Sandro Mayus from Albacete de Koenig to round out a top 10. But it's all about the Slovenian Tadej Pogačar, who wins 4 Tour of Lombardis in a row. Guys, he's only started 4 Tour of Lombardis. This was his 4th. He started the season at, of course, Strade Bianche, won there, won the Giro, won the Tour de France, won the Road World Championships, won Liège, Bastogne-Liège, another monument. Wins here again for his 4th, as I told you, at Tour of Lombardy. This kid is the next Eddie Merckx. There is no doubt about it. Nothing can stop the Slovenian Tadej Pogačar, who in the 24th season, his form has come the best that I have seen. When we compare it to Jonas Vingegaard, he has found something of, I'd take a guess, of about 10 watts more than anything we have seen out of the Slovenian. To go from the bookend in the season of the 24 all the way through, winning just about everything with the exception of Milan-San Remo, really. That was everything else he's basically won here in the 24 season. Magnificent season. Congratulations, Tadej Pogačar. UAE team members, you were almost spotless tactically here at Tour of Lombardy. When I look at Remco Evenepoel, fantastic decision once you got the gap on Moss and Leonard van Edveld not to wait for them. Go full gas. This is not the moment that you want to wait. Road World Championships, you certainly wanted to wait a little bit longer with your team. But here at Tour of Lombardy, once you see Leonard van Edveld and Enric Mas can't pull with you, try to go up there and try to catch Tadej Pogačar if you can. 2nd on the race, fantastic job for Remco Evenepoel to finish out the season. Behind Ciccone, you were almost perfect too, with the exception of that tack on the Shimano before Tadej Pogačar lit everyone up. I don't know what you were thinking there, but you had the legs to leapfrog from group after group after group to round out a podium here at Tour of Lombardy. Congratulations. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. This is the last race of the season for the Butterfly Effect, I'm pretty sure anyways, but I'll bring you some other videos on Beyond the Coverage or Chris Horner's Corner. So I'll see you on the next video real soon.